This chapter is special because it integrates everything we've learned about Unreal so far, including direct light, ambient light, cameras, lenses, tone mapper settings, and how Unreal renders images. PBL stands for physical-based lighting, which is a methodology using realistic values for lights. I started with the blank film template, and I'll delete everything to create just a plane, a sphere, and a direct light. There's an important difference between the blank game and blank film templates. In the game template, auto exposure is enabled by default, but in the film template, it's not. So I'll enable it because most people start this way. I decided to start with this other template to show the difference. I'll also change these two values to 0.8, which is their setting in the game template. Now we can continue with this simple scene, with one light and all settings unchanged except for the exposure I just showed. It doesn't matter if the light has an intensity of 10 lux or 1000 lux. Dynamic exposure is controlled by those project options. And if you see exposure being corrected as you add light, that's why. We've seen how Unreal is set up to provide the best visual quality right away, thanks to the tone mapper. The other part of this equation is dynamic exposure, known as eye adaptation. Especially in games, this function is necessary because players move in and out of dark areas, and the screen needs to adapt. Now, if we go back to project settings with the light still at 1000 lux, let's see what happens. I know you already know the outcome. With auto exposure off, the viewport now accurately represents the light's intensity. I'll leave it off for now and return to the scene. These options can be used with a post-process volume or a camera. To simplify, let's start with the post-process volume. We've seen in previous chapters the hierarchy of effects in Unreal. So, forget the project settings for now and continue with this volume, where we can re-enable auto exposure. First, I'm going to enable the infinite extent option. Then, in exposure under metering mode, we turn auto back on. In auto exposure, we need to enable min, max, and V100. And there you go, dynamic exposure is back. To better understand what V100 is or does, we'll open the HDRI adaptation viewer, which can be found under the small eye icon labeled Visualize. Now we have a bunch of graphs on the screen. It's another thing to complicate our lives. I hope you can see, but we have three lines here, a white one, a purple one, and a blue one behind the purple. The blue line represents the target exposure of the screen. The purple line shows the current exposure, which tries to adapt to the target. The white line is the final exposure after post-processing is applied. So, all that order of things we see in Unreal's rendering system is aiming for this white line to meet this exposure here. The simplest way to see this white line moving is by going back to the post-process volume. Here in exposure compensation, it's set to 1. I'll hide my favorite menus so you can see where it is. Under lens in exposure. Adjusting this exposure compensation will make the white line readjust. 1 means one stop, 2 means 2 stops, and so on. At 0, the two lines will be in the same place. Look there, the purple line, which is the current screen position, and the white line, the final exposure after corrections, will always stay together if this is set to 0. Now, the total area of this graph in green is defined by min, max, and 100. Without even knowing what these two values are, see how I adjust them and that area decreases. The minimum is on the left side. And on the right side, you can see nothing happens with the scene's lighting because these random values I'm adjusting haven't reached the white, blue, and purple lines. I can get really close to the lines, and nothing will happen because the exposure is in this area here, between the purple, blue, and white. Now I'm going to squeeze these values by reducing the max and V100 to well below where the lines are. Look, the blue line, which is the target, is beyond the area I defined with the minimum and maximum values. The purple line can only reach this maximum value, it can't reach the blue line. And the white is down there because we're using exposure compensation. If I set it to 0, the white and purple are the same, but they still can't reach the blue. And the blue, once again, is the target. That's all there is to it. If I reduce it even more, look how far the target is. So now you've seen how this visualization represents how Unreal adjusts dynamic exposure. There's this area, the target, and the values moving within this area. Have you understood what they do without even knowing exactly what this EV100 is that I've been talking about? Great, because now we're going to understand in a bit more detail what it means. And in the next chapter, we'll return to using this tool. Well, there's a lot of formulas and science to talk about this topic, but we're only going to see the simplified version, right? First, the name of the system is EXP. Yes, that's right, EV100. And the names of each of its values have similar names, which is where some confusion starts. EV1, E2, EV3, and so on. This number represents the intensity of the exposure. That's it, it's that simple. But we have to keep going, unfortunately. EV100 combines aperture shutter speed and an ISO that's always 100 fixed at this value. That's why the system is named EV100. It's just another way to organize the exposure triangle. And that's where tables like this come in. For example, first we set the minimum and maximum values to anything. Pick one, I'll wait, it can be any number. There's no wrong answer.
10.
If you said 10, great choice. Let's go to post-process and set both to 10. Well, what does this mean? By matching these two options with any number, you disable dynamic exposure. It means that Unreal, in the viewer graph we saw earlier, has no room to adjust exposure. That's why it's fixed now. So we read the shutter speed, ISO, and aperture. Pay attention to this lighting. We're going to exit automatic exposure mode, which uses the two EV100 values, and return to manual mode. This way we can use these three values to apply the table. For example, let's use a shutter speed of 125 and an f-stop of 2.8. As you saw in the table, this matches an EV100 set to 10. And if we want another manual configuration to maintain the same exposure, we look at the table again and set, for example, a shutter speed of 60 and an aperture or f-stop of 4. Once again, it's the same lighting and so on. Okay, but what's the point of fixing anything? What if you ask that? It's a great question. First, it's so we don't forget that by combining the values of the exposure triangle, we achieve the same result as you've just seen here and as we've seen in other projects so far. The second reason is to serve as a starting point to combine real light values with a camera setup that works right away. We have other tables like this one that show us this starting point. We start with these values and then change everything artistically. Look at how this table has both the exposure values of EV100 and real-world light intensity values, like the moon, the sun at different times of the day, and other objects in your house like lamps and ceiling lights. Let's do another example now. Sunlight has an intensity of around 100,000 lux. Let's go to the directional light and set it to 100,000 lux. And the temperature, also looking at this table, is around 500 kelvins. Let's use that temperature and change it to 500. This starting point is this EV100 set to 14. So let's fix both the minimum and maximum values at 14. Then switch the metering to auto exposure. We don't use the camera settings, just the minimum and maximum values. And that's it. With these values, just following the table, we managed to create an outdoor scene with midday sun using real light values and real exposure values. Here it looks dark because this standard on real material is gray. But to make it appear a bit brighter, I'll change the color of this material. Let's change it to almost 100% white. There, now this white material, which includes white walls, is visible. A white floor, white door, in the real world, this is how it would look when you take a photo with your camera set to EV100 at 14. As we learned before, we can use the EV100 method or the manual method to achieve the same exposure. Let's test this now. Before anything else, we need to decide the artistic direction of what we're doing. Composition, the mood of the scene, which camera, which lens, what focal distance, and depth of field, all of that. But in this tutorial, we'll simplify and just choose an f-stop of 2.8. Switch back to manual, and the exposure changed to the settings we had before, which are all wrong. It's based on that other example. An f-stop of 2.8 and a shutter speed of 2000, representing EV14, with ISO always at 100. So the same result in EV100 and manual mode. Let's do another example now with sunset light. We'll look at the table. Light intensity at 5000 lux. See the difference between midday light and late day light. And of course, the exposure is wrong, which is why it looks like night now, right? But let's also change to more lateral lighting. With this other reference image, we see it can be between 2000 and 3000 kelvins for the light temperature. Let's try 2500, then 3000. I prefer 3000 here. First, let's adjust the exposure using the EV100 method. According to the table, an EV7 is a good range for the correct exposure at this time of day. It defines it as low sun, but it's our interpretation of what this table does in the real world, along with our artistic intuition for the scene, right? We can't just copy without understanding what's happening. Go back to post-process, switch to auto exposure and set it to 7. This white material, at the end of the day, will look like this. Doesn't it seem too dark now? Let's go back and make the material a bit more gray, a bit darker, to associate this light with what we see in real life. Now I want to make it a bit warmer, so let's go to 2500 or even 2000. Perfect. EV7 and the sunset light. Now the same exposure in manual mode, once again. Go back to post-process, switch to manual, and let's find the values that represent EV100 when set to 7. F-stop 2.8, shutter speed at 15 and ISO at 100. Again, the same exposure in manual mode and EV100 mode. It doesn't matter if the scene is just a ball and a plane. It's the same idea for any project size or complexity. Continuing with the examples, let's simulate some lighting. We'll add internal lighting but return to midday sun. I'll just put up some walls and a ceiling first. Great, I've got my little house here. Let's change the sun's intensity back to 100,000 lux EV14 and a temperature of 500. Standard material, a bit whiter again. The midday sun would be directly overhead, but I want it at an angle. Remember, we set the exposure for the external environment and turned off dynamic exposure. It's clear the same exposure doesn't work for both internal and external environments. If I add an area light to simulate internal lighting, let's see what happens. Look, this light doesn't illuminate anything with the default value, which is 8 candelas. But then we check the table and find that internal lighting is around 1000 lumens and a temperature of about 3000 kelvins. Let's change that. Lumens 1000 and a temperature of 3000. Now you can start to see something from this light. But remember, the exposure we have now is for an external environment. The table shows that for internal environments, an EV100 exposure of 4 is ideal, or at least a starting point. We set it in the post process and put both EV100s at 4. Wow, what happened now? This exposure is for an internal environment, but it doesn't consider the sun, which is still on. And we have the door opening, the global illumination calculation, and everything seems very bright. It all seems very wrong, but it's not. In real life, we have to adapt the scene to our needs. The film set is a fictional place, completely customized. So we close the doors, put up curtains, light blockers, everything we've seen. Now I'll turn off the sun because that's what this EV100 exposure at 4 is expecting. And that's it. Look how much more realistic the scene looks now. Of course, we'll never find exact values for specific situations like window size or the exact lamp you have. What really matters is understanding how the tool was created to mimic the real world. By using real-world values and knowing how Unreal works, or any tool, you can manipulate these values beyond the ready-made tables we find. If you're wondering which method to use to manipulate these values, and whether to use EV100 or the manual method, let me explain. If you're making a game and haven't set up dynamic exposure, look what happens when the player enters a dark place like this. The exposure isn't enough. You can't see anything. It's completely dark. This isn't ideal. So let's go back to the scene, select the post-process volume, and instead of 14 on EV100, let's set it to 4. We learned that for interiors, an EV100 of 4 is ideal. Now the player is inside the cave and can see everything. But when going outside again, it's the same problem, just reversed. Now it's time to use dynamic exposure adaptation. I'll set the minimum to 4 and the maximum to 14. We can go back to the game. Now we can see both the candles I placed and the exposure outside. Gradually, as the light accumulates, the exposure adjusts itself. This is just a simplified demonstration of this function, but it shows that if you're only rendering static images or simple animations, you don't need dynamic exposure. It's an unnecessary complication. But that doesn't mean working in EV100 mode is useless, as you can start with it and switch to modified mode. If you prefer working manually using those tables, or maybe combining a post-process volume that controls exposure with a camera for lens effects. I'm sure you've realized how important this is in games, as everything is dynamic and the camera must be ready for different lighting situations quickly. But in our work, rendering static images, not so much. And that's the end of part 1. I'll see you in part 2.